Well, hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Good thing I can see the mic is working this week. I know last week when I started the lesson the mic wasn't working. So I'm happy to see that. We'll start in about 27 seconds on this lesson about emergency preparedness. Kind of a mouthful, the topic title. But yeah, we'll start in 15 seconds. I think everything is working great. That's awesome. I like it when everything's working the way it's supposed to work. Okay, let me see here. Starting in 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about emergency preparedness. Now, that is a hard thing to say, but that is the term we use to talk about being ready for an emergency. It's very important in life to be prepared in case something goes wrong. And if you're wondering, how did I come up with this topic? It's because around this time of year, I put my hat and gloves. I have a special pair of gloves and a hat that I keep in my vehicle because winter is coming here. It's important to be prepared for something to go wrong in the winter if you drive a vehicle. So as I was putting my gloves and hat in my van, I thought, I should do a bigger lesson on this. There are a lot of things you can do to prepare yourself in case something goes wrong in life. Maybe you go in the ditch, maybe the power goes out. There's a variety of things that you should just be prepared for. So once again, welcome to this English lesson on emergency preparedness. I think you will enjoy it. Before we get started, I do want to say hi to everyone who is here. Hi to Mode Eggs, Freddie Wolf, Stacy Gion, Vitor, Lolly Lolly. Automation Secure Home is here. Stacy Gion, Rodrigo, Alexander, Vupaporn, Hook, Israel, Sirhill. I'm saying names wrong. Sorry. Roman, Redfish, Francesco, Gianna. So many familiar names. Hi to Key Park and Jose. Jose says, Bob, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your fabulous English lessons. My kids, Henry and Bella, 7 and 5, would love for you to say hi, you rock. Well, hi to both of your kids, Henry and Bella. I hope they're having a good day, and hi to you as well, Jose. Hafia says, beard is growing nicely. Thank you. Yes, if you watched my most recent video, you'll know that I shaved it a little shorter than normal. So thankfully that is growing back, and I'm starting to feel like I look the way I normally look again. It's Friday. It's time for an English lesson. If you do have a question, if you are a member, you can type !link and Nightbot will share the link. But also from time to time, Nightbot will share the link, and it's in the description below. The link I'm talking about will go to a form, and you can use that form to ask a question about this lesson. Let's try to stay on topic with the question, and do use the chat to your advantage. It's kind of like a mini social club where you can practice reading English and typing a little bit of English, so a little bit of English writing. You can pretend you're saying it out loud if you want. Let's see here. I think it's ! and then the word link, Yaroslav, and then that should pop up. There you go. Freddie Wolf got it. Excellent. So if you could take care of that, members, every once in a while, pop that up so people can ask their questions. Should we get started? I think we should. Let's do that. A first aid kit. So a first aid kit is a box. You can buy a first aid kit that has everything that you need in it, or you can make your own first aid kit. Most people buy a first aid kit. We have a first aid kit in our house. And mostly, it's not just because it's good to have one as a family. It's also because we live on a farm. Now, you might be wondering, what is in a first aid kit? Mostly, there are bandages. There are things you can use to wrap someone's ankle or elbow if they injure themselves. By the way, bandages, if you cut yourself, you can put a bandage on the cut. But usually, it's the things you can use to take care of someone if they hurt themselves. At school, if we coach a team, when the team goes to play another team, we take a first aid kit with, just in case one of the athletes hurt themselves. So this is something that everyone should have, a small first aid kit somewhere in their house. just in case someone hurts themselves. You can then help them. And if it's something more serious, you can at least do what you can as you help them get to a doctor or a hospital. But first aid kit, probably the number one thing you should have in case of emergency. A flashlight. So one of the emergencies that is the most common here, and we just had one last week Wednesday, would be a power outage. So when the power goes out in the summer, it's not a big deal. But here in Canada, when the power goes out in the winter, it is a big deal for two reasons. One, it's cold in the winter and you need electricity to heat your house. And two, the days are very, very short right now. It gets dark at around 5 o'clock in the afternoon right now. So a flashlight is a very important thing to have. It allows you to see in the dark so that you don't have to stumble around your house. So the second kind of emergency you might have is a power outage, and it's always good to have a flashlight. Or if you're like me, you have a generator. We have a generator in case the power goes out. It's very important because if the power goes out in the summer, we have flowers in our floral coolers in the barn, and those flowers need to stay cold. So if the power goes out, we pull out the generator, we start the generator, and we connect the air conditioners or the cooling units to the generator so the flowers stay cold. And it's also nice because then we can run a long extension cord to our house, and then we have a little bit of power in the house to run our fridge and freezer as well. So when the power goes out, it is nice to have a generator. And yes, if you are learning British English, this is called a torch, I think, over there across the pond. That's how we sometimes refer to the UK, across the pond. We call it a flashlight. It might also be called a torch. Battery backup. I have one of these on my computer over there. When the power goes out, you don't want your computer to turn off suddenly. Maybe you're in the middle of typing something. Maybe you're in the middle of sending an email. And if the computer shuts off suddenly, you might lose that. So when you have a computer and you do important work on that computer, it's nice to have a battery backup. This will allow your computer to run for maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and then you can finish what you're doing and turn it off properly. So yes, power outages, they are not super common in Canada, but they are something that I would say 3 or 4 times a year we have a power outage. It's so you can take that how you want. I guess maybe that is common. They usually last for 10 minutes, maybe an hour. The last power outage lasted for almost 2.5 hours. That was a little bit, we were about to pull the generator out, but then the power came back on. Road flare. So I don't use these, but I have noticed that when truck drivers have a breakdown, when the truck stops working properly, or when a truck driver is in an accident, they will often put flares out on the road to let people know, especially if it's on a highway. If there is an accident on the highway, the police sometimes come and they will put out road flares to kind of warn people to move over and to not get involved in an accident that has already happened. So a normal driver like me or you, we probably wouldn't have road flares in our vehicle, but certainly truck drivers in Canada and police officers would have road flares so that they can light them. By the way, a road flare is like, you light a road flare and it's on fire. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it is a bright flame. It's similar to, what would it be similar to? Like a firework that burns for a very long time with a bright light at the end. It doesn't explode, obviously, but a road flare would be used in some sort of car accident or emergency or breakdown on the road. And then I do not know anything about these. These are things you probably would use on a boat. So let's say you are on a boat out on a big lake or out on the ocean and you run out of gas and it's getting dark and you need someone to rescue you, and maybe your phone is dead, and maybe you have a little marine radio, and it doesn't work either. You might use a flare gun to signal people. So similar to a road flare, this makes a very bright light as it burns, but a flare gun is something you use to shoot a flare up in the air, and usually it's red or a different color. I'm going to guess that the different colors mean different things. I don't actually know. But if I was out on a boat by myself with no phone and I needed to be rescued for some reason, I would maybe if I saw a boat in the distance, I would shoot the flare gun into the air, and hopefully they would see me and come and give me a tow or come and rescue me. Another standard piece of equipment, I would say first aid kit and fire extinguisher are two things that everyone should have somewhere. On the farm, we have a number of fire extinguishers. We have one by our stove in the kitchen. We have one in the back room of our house. We have one in the work area in our barn, and we have another one in the shed where we keep all of our tractors and other equipment. Fire extinguishers are your number one defense if there is a fire. So if you are in the situation where there is a fire, you should know where your fire extinguisher is. And I know this is just an English lesson, but if you don't own a fire extinguisher, you should get one. Just get a little fire extinguisher to keep somewhere in your house, just in case. It would be so nice if there was suddenly a little fire and you had a fire extinguisher and you could quickly put it out. A very important thing to have just in case. And speaking of fires at the school, I mean, there's other things you do in case of emergency. There's things you do for emergency preparedness. At school, we do what's called a fire drill. Every year, we do a practice fire drill. I guess its very nature is that it is practice, but let me explain a little bit. The fire department requires that we do a fire drill, and they observe us, and they tell us whether we passed or not. So in order to pass our fire drill, we practice a week before without the fire department there. And then the next week we will do a fire drill with the fire department there. So every year in the fall, the fire alarm goes off at the school and we exit in an orderly fashion. And then the principal makes sure everyone did it right. A week later, the fire department will come down, the fire chief and some other firefighters, and we will have another fire drill and demonstrate that we know how to exit the building properly if there is a fire. So just a good thing to practice at a school or other large building. Even I think if you work in an office building, you might not have a fire drill, but you will definitely have a plan to exit the building if there is a fire. I didn't see any responses in the chat about flare guns. I was hoping someone would know more about flare guns than me. I realized when I put that slide up, I didn't really know a lot about flare guns. I mean, I know what they are from seeing them in movies and stuff like that. Freddie says the Titanic lacks flare guns and with the wrong color, so that didn't help it to be rescued at the time. Yeah, I don't know a lot about that, but flare guns are certainly handy. Hafiez says, I have 2 fire extinguishers, one in the kitchen and another one upstairs. Have to do annual inspection on them. That part I didn't know. Yeah, you have to, they do expire, right? And you need to get them checked out. But yes, fire extinguishers, people. That's Bob the Canadian's advice for the day. You should have fire extinguishers. Okay, we're going to do some questions here. Let me have a sip of water. Oh, this is, yeah, I will tell this story, but it's not a horrible one. Unsel says, hi, teacher Bob, how are you doing? Have you ever experienced or witnessed an unforgettable work accident on the farm as a child or recently? Have a great day. Bye. Yes. So one time when I was a kid, there was a person who worked on our farm and there was a motor with a belt. And for some reason, he touched it and I'm not going to describe it in detail except to say that he injured himself pretty badly, his finger. And the reason I remember it is because I remember seeing blood It was one of the first times I saw blood. So I think my dad or mom got the first aid kit and they wrapped his finger in, I guess, bandages, or you might call it gauze. And then I remember them getting in the car to drive to the hospital. And he was okay. He had to get stitches. But I do remember as a young child, that was the first time I saw someone get injured to the point where they were bleeding. So it was a little traumatic. In English, we would say that that's a traumatic experience for a child to see. I didn't see him get hurt, but I saw him after he got hurt. Hung says, there was a typhoon that came to my city last year. In order to prepare, what emergency items should we prepare in case of an emergency disaster such as a big typhoon? Well, here's what Jen and I do when we know there is a big storm coming. We make sure we have gas for the generator. We make sure we charge everything in our house. So we charge all our phones. We charge our little battery packs. We have a couple flashlights that are rechargeable. We charge everything that we possibly can. And we make sure we have enough water and food. We always have enough food, but we make sure we're ready to go a few days without having to leave the house. And I would imagine the same would be true if any big storm is coming somewhere. You want to just have what you need in case you're stuck at home for 2 or 3 days. From Kurdish. Hi, Uncle Bob. Quick question. In Canada, do you typically use the term high visibility jacket or reflective vest for emergency preparedness? We call this a safety vest. My word for that would be safety vest. This is the one I wear when I walk down the road. You could call it a reflective vest. That would be another good term for it. But yes, it's not something I have on this vocabulary list, but certainly if I was a road worker or someone who had to go to accidents and help, tow cars, you would definitely wear a reflective vest. Lolly, bonjour, Bob. Quelle est la différence entre, what is the difference between emergency and urgency? Merci. So an emergency is something like when life goes wrong, like if you have a car accident, if your house is on fire, if you slip and fall and you can't get back up and no one's there to help you. Those are all emergencies. Urgency simply means that something needs to be done soon. At school this week, we had a special day called Career Day, and there was a lot of urgency in the morning to get everything planned properly. The people like me who were on the organizing committee, we felt like there was a sense of urgency to get things done. It means you want to get things done quickly and properly. Let's see here. So the next question is not on topic, but yes, Chase, I will try to get to a grocery store or other store or mall or restaurant soon. Let's see here. Oh, I do not have this on the list, Fritz. Today, everyone should know what needs to be done for a recovery position, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and heart massage in relation to first aid, don't they? So this is something that should have been on this list. Someone should know first aid and someone should know CPR. So those are two ways of helping someone who has who needs medical assistance. So obviously we have doctors and nurses and paramedics who know how to help people. But at our school, we also have a number of people who know first aid and CPR. First aid means you know how to help someone while you wait for the ambulance to come. So maybe someone sprains an ankle or breaks an arm, or maybe they're having an allergic reaction. If you have first aid training, you know what to do while you wait for the ambulance to come. CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Don't quote me on that, but it means you know how to do chest compressions and help someone in the situation where they are having trouble breathing or having a heart attack. So great addition, Fritz. Someone in your building, if you are at work or school, hopefully knows how to do both of those. Teacher, could I call that a spare battery? If we are looking at battery backup, we wouldn't, but we do have a lot of little battery. Oh, I have one right here. We have a lot of things like this, right? Where This, I don't know if this one is charged. It's got two little, I don't think it's going to focus. It's got two little lights, and I can charge a wide variety of things. We would call this a battery pack. In that situation, yeah, that's what we would call it. Let's see here. From Eaglefly, how is the emergency system in Canada? I mean, when someone had a heart attack or accident in the street, what will the emergency team do when they arrive at that place? So in this area, I actually know a couple of spots where ambulances are parked. So Canada works on a system where in a certain geographical area, there are a certain number of ambulances ready to help people. So in my area, this is a very large area. There's probably 3 or 4 ambulances right now, parked maybe in a parking lot. And then if one ambulance has to go and help someone, the other ambulances all move so that the coverage area is still intact. That's how the system works in Canada. The average response time, even for me out in the country, is very, very fast. If I called an ambulance right now, there would probably be an ambulance here in about 10 or 15 minutes. If I lived in the city, there would probably be an ambulance there within 5 or 10 minutes. So Canada, I really appreciate our ambulances and paramedics. They are great. Yeah, it's a great system. Nathan, how does the road flare light up? I think a road flare, you take off the cap and the cap can be used. You can strike the end with the cap like it's a big match and it will light, or you turn it and it will light. I'm not 100% sure, but they are flammable though. Like they burn. It's like a big candle, a huge candle. Let's see. Bob's fan says, a little nervous for the upcoming level 4 exams. I hope it goes well. And I Love D says, Merry early Christmas. Thank you. I hope you're doing well. Question 1, if your life was in danger, who wouldn't you call and why? Question 2, what's the best way to stay away from danger? So question 1, I'll tell you who I would call. In Canada, the emergency number is 911. I know in some countries it's 999. In other countries it's different. But here in Canada, that is the number you call. What's the best way to stay away from danger? Well, don't stay away. Yeah, I don't know how to say this. Like I was going to say, don't stay away from danger entirely. You should do things that you enjoy. You know, I hike somewhere. Some of the places where I hike are a little bit dangerous, but it's still enjoyable to get out in nature. So certainly don't just stay in your house all the time. That would be a mistake. But yes, think before you act. That's the best way to stay out of danger. Hey, let's go back to the lesson. Let's see here. Let's do a few more slides, and then in about 10 minutes, we'll do members only chat. Let's do that. So if there was a big storm coming, so for us in Canada, mostly that would be in the winter. If there was a big storm coming and they said, you know, roads are going to be impassable. So last winter we had a storm like this. We were home for 3 days and we couldn't go anywhere. Usually they do warn us that a storm like that is coming. If you live in a country that has hurricanes or typhoons or big winter storms, usually they'll say it could be bad. In that situation, Jen and I usually make sure we have enough water for 3 or 4 days or more. We make sure we have some water in the house, and we make sure that we just have a lot of non-perishable food. So we don't usually buy bottled water, but in our cupboard, we actually have water, and we call it the emergency water, the emergency water supply. And then every few months we do drink it all, and then we buy another case of water. But especially in the winter, it's important that we make sure we have some water. Because even if you live in the city, there might be a situation where you're like, we don't drink our tap water. So this is a little more normal for us. But in the city, you might want to have some extra water around every once in a while. And non-perishable food is food that doesn't need to be in the refrigerator. And it's food that can stay on the shelf for a very long time. In fact, in English, we also say that this food has a long shelf life. if you have some soup and tomato sauce and some canned beans and looks like canned corn over there, this non-perishable food has a very, very long shelf life. So it's important. We almost always have some food like this in our house, but if we know it's going to be a period of time where there might be a power outage or we can't leave, we'll make sure that we have some food like this. And we'll also have, just crackers and other food that you don't have to heat up to eat. And then it's good to have a plan. We have a plan. If our fire alarms, if our smoke detectors go off in our house, we have a plan for how to get out of the house, and we have a plan where to meet. Usually one of our vehicles is parked by the barn. So if we ever woke up and our house had smoke in it, Jen and I and the kids know that we need to exit, and we know that there are 2 different ways to exit from our house, and that we will meet by that vehicle parked by the barn. So it's good to have a plan. At work, you probably have a plan. If you are at a school, you probably have a plan for sure. I see in the chat someone saying toilet paper. I do not have toilet paper on the list. You should definitely have enough toilet paper if there is a bad storm coming as well. Good point, Vitor. So this is something that I don't normally have with me, but I think probably the best scenario I can think is if you walk in the dark regularly. So another kind of emergency situation might be someone tries to mug you or attack you. I'm not familiar with this because I live way out in the country. But if I lived in the city and I knew I was going to be walking at night in an area where it might be a little bit dangerous, I think I would have a whistle with me, so that if someone tried to steal my wallet or someone tried to attack me, I maybe could use the whistle to signal someone. I'm not an expert on self-defense or preventing someone from attacking you, so don't take my advice and buy a whistle. But certainly I do know people who live in areas where they carry pepper spray, which I think is illegal in some areas, or also called mace, or they might have a whistle on them to keep themselves safe. Now, we don't listen to the radio very often. We used to, a long time ago, listen to the radio, but we don't really anymore. But we do have one little radio, and it takes a battery. It doesn't have a crank on it like this one. And we keep that radio because if, let's say, the power went out for 3 days and we didn't have internet, we wouldn't have any way of knowing what's happening. So often in the winter, we'll make sure that our radio has a new battery in it, especially if a bad storm is coming, so that if the power went out, we could at least, listen to the news or listen to the radio to see if there are any announcements. So always a good idea to have a radio in case of emergency. And then, of course, you should have some batteries. Thankfully now a lot of things are rechargeable, but it's always a good idea to have some batteries on hand for your radio, for your flashlight, and anything else that you might use if it is an emergency. It's just handy to be able to replace the batteries if the batteries go dead in something. So batteries, and notice all the words I use there. Batteries go dead. You replace the batteries if they go dead. That's how we talk about batteries in English. And these are not rechargeable, but you can also buy rechargeable batteries, which are handy as well. Charger. So you want to be able to charge your phone. So my phone goes about 2 days before my phone is dead. So it's a good idea to be able to charge your phone. Just checking, I got an email here. Oh, very cool. I'm waiting to hear from someone, so nice. So it's good to have a charger. You might not have power, but you might have power in an emergency. So it would be nice to be able to charge your devices if they go dead. And then this one doesn't have a solar panel on it. You can see this one has a solar panel on it, but we would call this a battery pack or a phone charger. I usually just call it a power pack sometimes. This is something that you can charge, and then this one's kind of nice because it has wireless charging. So if I put my phone on this, when it's on, it will charge. But it also has all of the necessary, let's see here if it will focus, probably not. It also has all of the necessary ports for charging phones and other devices. So it's nice to have a battery pack. I might get one like this someday, but they're a little bit pricey, so we'll see. And you might want candles. Now, the fire department doesn't like it if you use candles during a power outage, but candles are certainly a way to have light. Whenever there's a power outage here in Ontario, every once in a while, there's also a house fire because people use candles and they accidentally set their house on fire. So we do use candles as a last resort. That means that we usually use our rechargeable flashlights and lamps, but we do keep candles in the house just in case, because if the power was out for 3 days, and that has happened before, twice in my time living here, the power's been out for 3 or 4 days. Usually that happens when we have an ice storm. So eventually, if everything you own is dead, it's nice to at least have some candles to safely light. Use them safely to light your house. And then, of course, you should have a lighter or matches. A lighter, of course, is something that you flick and you use it to light your candles. Matches, you strike a match and then you use that to light your candles or other things. But definitely, if you have candles, you're going to want to have a lighter, or you're going to want to have matches, a pack of matches. And keep these out of reach of children. So in English, we have a phrase, packages will say, keep out of reach of children. If you have medicine or painkillers like Advil or Tylenol or matches, usually there's a warning that says, keep out of reach of children. Certainly if you have matches, keep them out of reach of children. Kids, if they find matches, will probably play with them. You might, if it's a serious emergency, you might want to take some of your important documents if you have to leave. Let's say you live in an area where they say there's going to be flooding. Maybe there's going to be a tsunami. If you are quickly leaving, you'll want to take your important documents with you. You'll want to make sure that you have things like your passport. Maybe you have a piece of paper that says you own your house. But if you have important documents in your house, and you need to evacuate. When you are evacuated, it means you need to leave an area because of a coming emergency. That rarely happens here, but I know it does happen in areas closer to the ocean where there might be some kind of flooding and you might need to evacuate. Pet food. So this is kind of an interesting one. If there's an emergency, your pet needs to eat. You don't just need food for yourself. You might need food for your pet. I remember my uncle and aunt were camping once and they had their dog with them and there was a tornado. So a tornado is like a cyclone. A tornado came through the campground and they needed to be evacuated. And then they were happy because someone brought them some dog food. They didn't remember to take their dog food with. So even pets during an emergency, of course, will need food. So make sure that if there's a big storm coming, if we know there's a big storm coming, we make sure we have enough dog food for Oscar and Walter. And then extra clothing. So this has a number of uses, I guess I would say. When Jen and I go on a long trip in the winter, we always bring extra clothing because if the car or van was to break down or if we got in an accident, we no longer have heat. So I mentioned that I keep a toque and gloves in the van. If I'm just driving to school and back, and if I was to have car problems or get in a small accident, I probably will find, like I know people who live along that road. I know that I wouldn't be stuck out in the cold for hours on end. I could call Jen and she could come and get me. But when we go to visit Jen's parents who live a few hours from here, we make sure we take some winter clothing, a big winter coat, some extra socks and shoes, or socks and sweaters and winter hats, just in case if we were to go in the ditch, slide into the ditch, or if the car broke down, then we would have those things ready to go. Hey, let's do some more questions. Brent's here. Hey, Brent. Brent says, I wonder if Bob has included the term prepper. Maybe it's only an American thing. I am familiar with the word prepper. A prepper is someone who does all this stuff in case things go badly in the world. They're preparing for something to go very badly. It is very much an American term, but I am familiar with it. Okay, let me get to, hi Brent, by the way, hope you're having a good day. Let's see here. I need to go here, and then members only chat is now on. You should see that change. I think Brent and I have, what did you say, Brent? I think Brent and I have similar Christmas breaks. I know I go to the 22nd, Brent's going to the 21st, and I'm assuming you have 2 weeks, right, Brent? Yeah, Brent says he gets out on the 21st. Okay, so maybe during Christmas break we'll do something together. I'm not sure when the busy part of Brent's break is, but Brent, I'll send you a message later today or tomorrow. Maybe we'll figure out how to do something together. Let's see here. Question here, and then I will do questions from members as well. MoFan says, aside from the things you supposed to teach on your lesson, what other tips you can recommend in terms of being prepared for unexpected events? Happy for your recovery. So I will say this. One other thing I highly recommend is to make sure that you exercise regularly, because sometimes when there is some kind of emergency, it also might mean you need to walk a long ways or run for a little bit or lift something heavy. And the examples I would give are this. If I saw Jen slip and fall outside, I would want to be physically able to run out and help her. So I think that being in good shape is a good idea. If I dropped something heavy on my foot, I would want to be able to lift it off my foot. And though if my car got a flat tire, I'd want to have this strength to be able to change the tire and jack the car up. So I would say I'll leave it at that. One thing I highly recommend is that you exercise regularly so that you are physically able to do things if there is an emergency. Jeremy, hello, Bob. How are you doing? Hope you're getting much better now and not sick. Love your lesson so much. Well, thanks, Jeremy. I'm feeling much better. I'm still not 100%, but I'm not going to go on and on about it, but definitely feeling much better. Okay, from the chat, Key Park says, hello, Brent. Hafia says, apocalypse prepper. Yes, someone who's preparing for the breakdown of civilization. So, but we're talking more about little emergencies and bigger ones. So let's see. Brent says, I go back on the 2nd of June. You sure it's not January? I'm assuming it's January. I'm pretty sure your break isn't 5.5 or 6 months long. Yaroslav says, morning, the wisest teacher, Bob. I am wondering, how are you and how do you feel? Thanks for the live stream. Extremely happy to be live with you all. Take good care of yourself. Yes, I feel much better. There are a lot of, Brent probably has the same thing. There are a lot of things going around right now in this part of the world. There are, so COVID's going around. There's a really bad flu, a respiratory flu going around. And there's something called RSV going around. And there's also another, almost like a little bit of a pneumonia going around. So hopefully I don't get sick again. So we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot going around. Martin says, having a Victorinox is always nice. We call it a Swiss Army knife, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit. Know That says, hello, Bob. Have you ever had an experience with someone having an epileptic seizure? Yes. Maybe at your school. Thanks in advance. Yes, I've had that several times, at least 4 or 5 times, where someone has either passed out, had a seizure, or gotten sick. It's very common for a teacher to experience those situations, and we have a plan and we have some training in terms of what we do. For me, if a student in my class starts to have an epileptic seizure, I immediately send students to get the person who has first aid and training to handle seizures, and very quickly a plan just unfolds. And my job is to make the person as comfortable as they can while I wait for someone who knows better what they are doing. So like if they're in a desk, prevent them from falling and hurting themselves further and stuff like that. So I have minimal training, but yes, if you work, any teacher that works in a school will have experienced medical emergencies with students of some kind. Brent says, I'm pretty much free for the entire winter break. Cool. Our family Christmases are all over the place, Brent. So we'll touch base and figure out when we're both sitting at home bored. And then maybe we'll do a live stream on StreamYard together or something. No, that says to Brent, hello, Brent. Wanda says, hi, Teacher Bob. If you were living in the city, would you have a fire extinguisher inside of your house? Is it common? Thanks. I probably would. I am a very cautious person. And generally, I'm not sure if this is true of every insurance company, but my insurance company requires that I have a fire extinguisher in my house. And because we're a farm, the insurance company comes and inspects every 5 years to make sure that we are doing things properly to prevent fire and fire damage. So I'm not sure if that's true if you have house insurance in the city, but I would. I'm used to having a fire extinguisher. Mode says, whoa, you get half of the year off for Christmas. That's what Mode says to Brett. Freddie says, hello, Brett. Keypark says, we can prepare a tool for breaking car window from inside. I don't know if there is an English word to explain that. Some people have one of those. You can buy a little thing that makes it easy to break a car window and cut your seatbelt. I don't have one, but I've seen a tool like that. Brent says, oh crap, January 2nd. Yes. I think I'm off longer than that, Brent. I think I'm off till the 6th or something like that. I got to look at a calendar. Canada's better. Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud? I don't go back till the 8th, I don't think. So anyways, Nightbot's chatting. Mode says, yes, I was going to ask if you were feeling 100% now. Thanks to Jeremy for the reminder. I'm feeling 87%. Is that fair? I'm just joking. That's not a normal English thing to do. You either feel 100% or you don't feel well, but jokingly, I feel about 87% right now. Let's see. Brent saying hi to people. Amran says, do you have a plan for getting out of your school, if any emergency accident happens? Yes, we have lockdown plans. We have fire drills for fire. That's really about it. Yep. But we have plans in place and we practice those plans once a year. It's just good at it, especially when you're trying to organize a large group of people in an emergency. It's good to have planned ahead and practiced what you are going to do. Lockdown drills are new. Those started about 20 years ago, 15 years ago. But fire drills are far more common, but we do have plans for both situations. Okay, let me see here. I'm going to go back to slide questions or form questions. From Martin, hi Bob. If you had to survive for 1 month in a certain situation, what 3 items would you prefer to have? By the way, I hope that never happens. Well, this isn't possible, but I would hope to have enough gas to run the generator for a month so that I can keep my fridge and freezer working, so that I could keep my food frozen and cold. That would probably be key. If it was winter, it would also allow me to run my furnace to stay warm. We also have a wood stove here though, so I could burn wood. But if I had to go 1 month, I would want to have enough gas to run my generator 6 to 8 hours a day, just so I could run my freezer and fridge that long every day. I think that would be the case. I'm not sure though. That would be a long time for sure. Freddie says, Bob, I wonder if the current emergency number 911 is related to the day of attack of September 11th of the World Trade Center in New York. In Europe, the emergency number is 112. No, that has always been our number. It has always been 911. So it's just a coincidence. And 112, cool. I think in Britain, it's not, is it 999 in Britain? I think that's the case. Maybe someone in the chat knows that. One more question here, and I'll get back to the chat. Peter says, hello, Mr. Bob. Merry Christmas. Your topic is great today. My question, what's the difference between battery backup and power bank? Thank you. Have a good day. So a battery backup, you plug into the wall, and it has a battery in it, and it keeps your computer running. Like you plug your computer into the battery backup, and it keeps your computer running for a little bit when the power goes out. This I would call a power bank or a power pack or a charger. We call it a whole bunch of different things. It doesn't have one specific name, but I wouldn't call this a battery backup. Okay, I would call this a power bank or a charger. Okay, back to the chat. School. Hafiez says to Brent, any movies you watched recently? Having a good chat. Good. Key Park. I heard a bottle of pop can work as a little fire extinguisher in the kitchen. Oh, shake it up and shoot Coca-Cola everywhere, maybe. Freddie Wolf says, at the time, the people put real candles on their Christmas tree. That was quite dangerous and causes so many fires. I hope it's no more allowed today to do that. It was kind of crazy. I have heard that. It probably looked really pretty, but that is just a bad idea. You are right. Definitely a bad idea. Brent says Canada is better. I always say it this way. Canada's better at some things and America's better at other things. That's just the way it goes. Know that. Only 5% more than last week, Bob, if I remember correctly. Yes. It's going up, though, how I'm feeling. Brent says to Hafiez, I really haven't seen any movies, but I might go to Napoleon and Poor Things. Oh, yeah, there's a Napoleon movie coming out, isn't there? That should be interesting. It should be interesting to see, is it an American movie about a French historical figure? Be interesting to see what our French learners think of that film when it comes out. Hafiez. Yep, emergency number in UK is 999. People complain that shouldn't be the number because sometimes kids accidentally call the repeating number. I guess that's easy, right? Beep, beep, beep. Never thought about that. Shabir Ahmad says, thanks, Bob. No problem. Vitor says, welcome. Very cool. Oh, yeah. Welcome, Shabir Ahmad, to being a member. Welcome to live stream fun, as we call it. Let's see here. Let's skip the next question, and we'll do one more question from the forum, and then we'll get back to the lesson. I'm also going to turn off members chat. Just give me a minute to do that, and then I will get to the lesson on the screen, or the question on the screen, sorry. Jose says, yesterday in Mexico, the early earthquake warning alarm went off and had to evacuate. Wonder if there's a difference between a bug out bag and an emergency backpack. They would be the same. Bug out bag, I think, is more of a military term. Some people might call it a go bag, or emergency backpack. Some people, I don't have this, but some people keep a small bag packed with clothes and other items in case they need to leave quickly to do something. And you might call it a bug out bag. So if you live in an area where for some reason there's an alarm and you have to seek shelter, you might keep a small bag packed in case of doing that. It has another name and I can't think of it. Go bag, is that what it's called? But yes, a small amount of clothing and like a toothbrush, toothpaste, and other things packed if you need to go somewhere for some reason. Okay, medication. If you are someone who is on medication, especially if it is something you must take every day for your health, you would want to make sure that if you need to go somewhere in an emergency, that you take your medication with you. So this is a good example from the evacuation example. If you needed to evacuate an area, you would want to make sure that you took your medication with you. It wouldn't be good to be in a shelter or to have to leave an area and then not have your medication. You would want to make sure you take it with you. And you want to take toiletries. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with this term in English. Toiletries refer to all of the things you use to care for yourself. So things like a comb, toothpaste, toothbrush, shampoo, soap, dental floss, deodorant, mouthwash. There's a few of these things in this picture. We call these toiletries. I'm not sure if this is just a Canadian term, but for me, I know that if I pack to go somewhere, and I'm serious, I'm really hoping to go see Brent in Maine at the end of June or beginning of July. And if I pack to go see him, I will pack clothes, but I will also pack my toiletries. So toothbrush, toothpaste. I think Brent would appreciate that if I actually, when I got there, was able to not smell or have bad breath. Anyways, toiletries are all of those things that basically you use in the bathroom. Shaving cream, little shaver or razor, those are all toiletries. Always good to have those in case of emergency, because sometimes you might have to go for days without showering, but you can at least brush your teeth and put on deodorant and smell nice for the people around you. Gas. So you might need gas for a generator. You might need gas just so that you can keep driving your car. We usually keep 2 cans of gas almost all the time. In the summer, we always have gas because we have lawnmowers and those kinds of things. But in the winter, we try to make sure we have 2 cans of gas so that if the power did go out, we could at least run the generator for a small period of time. And you might need gas for your vehicle or another reason if it is an emergency. So there's something called a pocket knife. We also call this a jackknife. In an emergency, you never know what you might need to cut or scrape or slice. You could use this to cut up carrots to feed your family. You could use this to make a point on a stick so that you can roast something over a fire. So a pocket knife is a handy thing to have. I do not have a pocket knife. What I have is a Swiss Army knife. These things are very, very cool. So if you have one of these, you know what I'm talking about. This is almost exactly the Swiss Army knife that I have. And that's what we call it in Canada. I think that's probably what most English speakers call it. It has a knife. It has a screwdriver. It has a can opener. It has a scissor. It has scissors. It has, I think you can sew with it. It has a little saw. And it has, of course, a corkscrew if you happen to need to open a bottle of wine. I've never used the corkscrew. Very cool. I really, really like that tool. There's another type of tool called a multi-tool, which is similar but has pliers. But if you don't have a Swiss Army knife, if you're looking for gift ideas for Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, buy someone a Swiss Army knife. I'm sure they'll love it. Very handy thing to have. It's good to have a can opener. If you have a whole bunch of non-perishable food in cans and the power's out and you are somewhere and you don't have a can opener, you can't eat the food. It's stuck in the cans. So having a can opener is certainly a handy thing to have. You can open the canned food and you can eat it. So definitely a good idea to have a can opener. And then entertainment. One of the things we notice, because the most common emergency here would be a power outage, one of the things we notice is that you can't do the things you normally do. You can't work on your computer. I can't make videos. Jen, she can work outside still if it's summer, but when work is done, you need some form of entertainment. So it's good to have a book, a deck of cards, maybe some different board games. It's good to have things for entertainment because you might have to go a long period of time where you can't watch TV or you can't use the internet. So definitely a good idea to have some form of entertainment ready to go. And then you might want to have some cash. One of the things we noticed during the last power outage was that the one restaurant had power, but they weren't able to do electronic transactions. So you couldn't pay with your phone or bank card or Visa card, but they took cash. So we were able to go get pizza, even though there was a power outage at our house. So it's always a good idea to have a little bit of cash. I don't think I have any cash in my wallet right now. Do I have any cash in my wallet? Oh, yes. $5. So this is not a lot of money, but at least I have some money in my wallet. But generally 10, 20, maybe $30 cash or more. It's a good idea to always have a little bit of cash somewhere, just in case you need it. I don't think you need this, but when I was done making my slides, when I make the lessons, when I'm done coming up with all my own ideas, then I use the internet to see if there's anything I missed. And they said you should have a compass. I don't have a compass. I think GPS on phones has kind of replaced that, right? Like, but maybe if you live somewhere like in the northern part of Finland or something, maybe it would be a good idea to have a compass just in case. But I don't. By the way, a compass will point towards magnetic north. So magnetic north is slightly off from true north, but it will give you a good idea of which direction is north. And then you might know which direction to walk to get home or find the nearest city, etc., etc. Maybe I should get a compass. Maybe this is a good Christmas gift idea as well. I don't know why you need rope, but they said if you're preparing, you should have rope. And then I thought to myself, maybe you need rope to help someone. Maybe the emergency situation is someone needs to be rescued when they're climbing. Maybe you need rope to pull a car out of a ditch, but a rope might be a handy thing to have. I didn't think of this one because we just have rope on the farm for a variety of reasons. So there's always rope somewhere. And the list said you should have an axe. Maybe you live somewhere where there's lots of trees, and in order to heat your house, you need to go out and chop some firewood. It might be handy to have an axe in order to do that. It might be a good idea to have an axe and maybe a saw to be able to cut up wood to use in a fireplace or in a wood stove to keep your house warm during a power outage or other emergency. And then it's always good to have some blankets. We also keep a few blankets in our car in the winter. If we're going on a long trip, we keep a couple blankets in the back of the van. Again, just in case we're somewhere cold and our van stops working or we're in an accident. It's always good to have your hat, your gloves. We call it a toque, by the way, the hat, blankets. If you go on a long trip in the winter, Brent's probably familiar with this as well. It's just good to be prepared in those situations. Hey, that was my lesson on emergency preparedness. A lot of this was related to power outages, but also car accidents and fires and floods and those kinds of things. But for me, the most common thing has just always been we try to be prepared for power outages, especially in the winter. Let me finish off some questions here, and then I need to go. Oh, no, there are no more questions. Awesome. That's handy because I do need to get going in 3 minutes. Je vais parler français avec mon ami. I'm going to be speaking French in a few minutes. So let's see here. Let me go to the chat. Afia says, I think the northern part of Finland also doesn't need compass, just GPS, probably. You may have a compass in your phone. Yeah, I think my phone, every once in a while, I have to calibrate the compass in the phone. So let's see here. Talking about the movie. People are starting to say bye. Awesome. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Remember, this lesson will come out in a shorter version in a couple of days. You can use that to review all of the things that we have talked about. I'm sure there's a few things on this list that were new for you. Things like maybe Swiss Army knife or important documents or non-perishable food. All very common terms in English that you might not have known. Anyways, thanks for watching. You're all awesome. Have a great day, and I will see you Tuesday with a new video. And I'll see you next week with another live English lesson. Bye, everybody.